How about a little bit of January elk hunting talk? Here we go. There exists a threat, from anti-hunting groups to politicians trying to give our land away, and we won't stand for it. Those vast western landscapes provide the space for our wildlife to thrive and a place for hunters and anglers to fuel the fire that sparks their soul. In this show, we share our love of hunting, fishing, and conservation. Here, we provide the foundation to meet these threats through passion and the grit of the American outdoorsman. Welcome to the Western Huntsman podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of the Western Huntsman podcast. I believe this is episode 140. This is Jim Huntsman, your host, coming at you from the Broken Tine studio right here in Clark Fork, Idaho. And I have got a new friend on for this week. We've had such serious conversations the last month or so, it seems like, since before Christmas. And so I thought it might be kind of fun to kick back and just talk a little elk hunting from somebody who was referred to me, and I just met him tonight, and you're going to meet him too, and I think you're going to like him as much as I do. His name is Bob Terwilliger. An I pronounce your name right, Bob?
Yes, you did, Jim.
All right. So Bob is down in Colorado, and he is an elk hunting guide. He's a passionate fly fisherman, and he is somebody that was referred to me by a mutual friend. I don't know if you guys know him or not. His name is Dirk Durham. But anytime Dirk refers somebody, I usually jump on it because it always works out pretty well. So, Bob, I appreciate you joining me, man.
Glad to be here. I love to talk elk hunting for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously one of my favorite topics. I want to, I'm real curious about what you do as a guide and all that kind of stuff, and I want to get into all that, but let's kick it off. We were kind of talking before I hit record there. Let's kick it off with a little bit of your background and who you are, and we'll take it from there, man.
Yeah, sounds good. So, as Jim mentioned, I'm Bob Terwilliger. I live in Colorado. I've been here almost 30 years now. I actually am very fortunate that I grew up in a family that was extremely strong in the hunting heritage in upstate New York, hunting whitetails and hunting wild turkeys. My grandfather had horses, and I followed him and my dad around from the time I was about 6 years old. And they really taught me the ropes with hunting ethics, safety, fundamentals, all those kinds of things that kind of set me up. Didn't really learn ride what I would call good until I moved here to Colorado. My grandfather threw me on a horse when I was about 6 and just said, hold on. That's the way it went back then. But, I've been hunting now for, if I include the time following them around for 60 years. I'm entering my 15th year of guiding. I got into that late as a second career when I moved to Colorado in the early 90s. Was when I first got into elk hunting. And first 14 years, I hunted on my own. And as I was hunting, I tended to run into one of the local outfitters in the area I hunted for years, and his crew out on the trails. And a lot of times they'd see me packing elk and stuff. And after a few years of that, seeing me packing these bulls, they'd say, hey, you need to come down and work for us. Mm-hmm. And the more I thought about it and talked it over with my wife, I said, boy, this would be an excellent chance to get out of corporate America. I actually worked in IBM for 36 years, but I managed the last 6 or 7 years I was in IBM. I was actually guiding full-time to set myself up for a second career. So it's worked out really well. Certainly enjoy it. And the thing with guiding is, although there's trade-offs about it, and we'll get into that, but the nice thing with guiding is when I was guiding elk hunts full-time, which I did for 9 years, I was out in the woods every fall, 7 weeks, guiding elk hunts, Yeah. And now in my mid-60s, I backed off where I'll guide a couple of weeks a year because, frankly, I'm hunting more on my own again with my son and with close friends and family. And but I still guide a fair amount of fishing in the summertime. So
Oh, do you? You do as a fly fishing guide? Oh, it says it right here on your Instagram.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
want
know,
to
and
talk. We'll
I'm
talk a little
strictly
fly fishing.
backcountry, so
What's
yep.
that? What's that?
I'm strictly backcountry. You know,
Oh,
the types of
gotcha.
operations I worked in are back off the beaten path, so everything is on horseback and mule, and you know, it generally takes high clearance 4-wheel drive to get into the places where the base camps are, and then from there on, we take off on horseback and get further back. So.
Gosh, what a life, man! That just sounds fantastic. Especially, I don't know. I'm looking. I'm on your Instagram page as we're recording here, which is for those listening, Bob T756 at Bob T756, and I'll have that linked in the show notes here. But it was funny when Dirk was telling me, he's like, "Man, you got to get this Bob guy on." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, how come?" And he's like, "Bob is who I want to be when I grow up." And so I'm like, okay, well, that's saying something. And so I jumped on here and I could see why. I mean, gosh, you don't see guys your age in that great a shape very often. You're in great shape.
Yeah.
You're clearly passionate about the outdoors and elk hunting and fly fishing and everything that, you know, that life entails. And it looks like you do a great job at it. I mean, how did you get to this point where you felt like you were a competent enough elk hunter, and you're like, you know what, I want to be an elk guide?
Well, you know, that again, I'll give credit to my dad and grandfather, because a lot of the fundamentals I learned about hunting, you know, whether it be archery or rifle and marksmanship with both, and all those core hunting skills, you know, I grew up with. But then when I came to Colorado, you know, for the first 14 years here, I hunted on my own. And when I first got here, I mean, hunting elk was a dream of mine, and I was like a sponge when I got here. I mean, every chance I had when I wasn't working or with family, I was out backpacking in the backcountry, you know, fishing. You know, of course, during the hunting seasons, and this was before OnX time. So,
Yeah,
you know, really, it was topo maps and get out there and burn some rubber under your feet, you know?
yeah, for sure.
So I did a lot of that. And, you know, the other thing I'll talk about is that when it came to calling, you know, I did learn to use the diaphragm call back east for turkey. So switching over and starting to learn for elk, you know, that came to me fairly quickly for the basics. And then of course you get to meet guys like Dirk, and then things like YouTube come about, and I'm a big component of going out there on YouTube, and I listen to other guys bugle and that kind of stuff, and learn different variations, different cadences, because I'm always trying to broaden my skills in those kinds of areas. So, you know, it was really just going out and digging in. You know, as far as the horse thing, I took a ton of horseback riding lessons. I took some packing classes. And then when we worked, you know, when I got involved in my first outfitting job, you know, which was 2008, you know, it just kept building from there. There's so much to learn. You know, for me, I would say probably the part that would take me the longest because is the horse stuff, because that really needs to come second nature. You know,
Yeah.
You're getting up 3:30 in the morning, catching stock and getting them settled and ready, and taking clients out, riding in the dark, you know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. So those skills, they take a little bit more time to build unless you've been doing it from an early age. And certainly I had ridden from an early age, but not the kind of riding I've been doing here for the last 30 years. So,
Man, you know, I'm always so on the fence when it comes to, you know, having horses again. I used to have horses, and they were great for the type of hunting I was doing then. I don't know that they work great in the country I'm in now, but they were great for that open, a little more open country like Colorado. I was in Utah, where what I'm talking about here. And we'd take them up on mule deer hunts and whatnot. I don't know. But I'm on the fence because I had like this, the last year I had 2 of them. In fact, I technically still own the one. I kind of gave him to it's not a dude ranch, but it's similar to that. He's a cutter. Great horse. Yeah. But he was meaner than a rattlesnake, except for with me. Nobody else could ride him. But anyway, he, I guess what I'm saying is that last year the horses they ended up costing me a fortune and I just couldn't afford it. And this was years ago. And I ended up just kind of leaving that horse there, 2012, 2013, when we moved back to Idaho. And now my daughters are bugging me to get horses, but I don't want to be tied down with them, I think, is the biggest thing, and the expense. And so what's your take on that? How advantageous are they for you as a hunter and a guide?
Well, there's a couple different aspects to it. I mean, as a hunter myself, the ideal situation is that I use my animals to get my gear into the backcountry, and then unfortunately, I've got a buddy that will then take my mules out, keep them at his ranch, and then come get me when I'm done. That's the ideal situation because, as you well understand, by the time you bring your gear in, and then if you kill elk and then you got to get your elk out, your gear out, I mean, it turns into quite a mission, and I tend to hunt pretty remote country. I mean, some of my favorite places to hunt elk, when I'm on my own, it's a 6-7 mile trek into the backcountry. And then, I'm hunting 6, 8, 10 miles a day, depending on the season and the weather, as far as miles putting on my feet. So, what I have done before though, is, if I don't have somebody to bring them in or take them back out, then I will load the animals up. And I've always been in the belief with the stuff I've done on my own that I bring one horse per person. And we load our horses up with some feed for the horses, with our gear. And we walk them in because, the more horses you have back there, the more work you have, the more time you spend feeding them and watering them and everything else. So like if it's me and my son, we'll bring my 2 mules, we'll bring some feed back for a couple of days. And then I've got hobbles that I can, the animals that I've had, I train them so they can be hobbled. So we come back midday. Some days we can take them out to some green areas and hobble them up and let them get some freedom and hop around and eat until they're content, and tie them back up again. So that's kind of the way that I hunt with them on my own. Now, from an outfitting business, you see really 2 different deals. A lot of outfitters are going to have spike camps that are, 2 to 3 hours from where their base camp is. And they'll use the same strategy where they'll pack, guides and clients, maybe a cook in, with pack stock and riding stock, get you back in there. And then the packers will pull the animals out until the end of your hunt, or unless you kill something, they send it back in. Or if you're hunting out of the base camp, which, many outfitters have as well, then those animals are really, essential because you're talking about people that don't spend the time in the backcountry like we do and are in the kind of physical shape that we have. And without those horses, you'd never get them in and out of the hunting country. Most of them anyway. So
is it ever a challenge with clients coming in that have never seen even a horse in real life? They've seen them on TV kind of thing, and trying to get them comfortable enough on horseback to get them back there? And I ask that because riding, I know the kind of country you're in because I could see it all over your Instagram here. That's not like entry-level horseback riding country.
No, it's not. And, that's a really great point. And the thing I'll tell you is that this is the 3rd operation I've worked for. All of the outfitters that I've worked for all have excellent stock. And they have riding stock for all abilities. And they are very diligent about understanding somebody's riding abilities if they've never ridden before. And actually, what I'll tell you is a lot of times the people that have never ridden before, they can do better than the ones that come in and tell you, oh, yeah, I can ride. And you find out when they get on there, it's all talk, because they may have ridden something on a trail ride, like up in Rocky Mountain National Park, where it's follow the leader. But they really, that doesn't mean you can put them on a more experienced horse.
Yeah.
So, outfitters do have highly seasoned stock that are good for all abilities. They've got different size stock typically, and they do a darn good job of matching clients up to their ability. Now, of course, with a horseback hunt, you've got to have those kind of candid conversations. to say, look, it's not a problem. This horse or this mule is going to take care of you. You just got to trust in him and do as we tell you, and I'll tell you, 99.99% of the clients that I've guided over the last 15 years all fit that category where it's really not a problem. If they're game, outfitters have stock that can accommodate them. So,
So, and that kind of brings me to this question as a guide, Bob, what is that lifestyle like? I've just always been a little bit curious about doing that as for a living. What's frustrating about it? What's rewarding about it? Tell me a little bit about being a guide.
Sure, absolutely. So the first thing I'll start out with is that the one thing you'll see with the guiding business, and a lot of outfitters run into this, is that it does, by nature, because it's not typically a year-round position. It's a lot of physical work. It does attract, typically younger people, and younger in their careers, maybe haven't even started their serious life career yet.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these young folks will come into it, and they, it kind of has this image out there that people that don't understand it, that it's a glory job, and it's put your Western boots on, put your hat on, put on your chinks or your chaps, and look the part, and you go out there and ride horses, and that's what it is, like a movie star.
Sure.
And I can tell you that it's, if you're not ready to work hard, and get little sleep, it's not going to be for you. I mean, it's hard work, during the season, during the hunting season, particularly archery, the days are the longest. Mm-hmm. You're getting up at 3:30 in the morning to catch stock, and you're probably not getting to bed at night till 10:30 or 11 o'clock, getting up the next day and doing it again.
Wow.
The other thing that I found that I've seen is that, a lot of guys will come in and they've got the hunting skills and they want to guide, and most of them are really, really good hunters. But when you go work for an outfitter, they don't have the luxury that they can have, an unlimited staff and all these unique skills. So you really need to learn, and they're patient. They'll work with you. They'll help you build your skills if you put forth the effort. But you've got to build your skills beyond guiding and hunting or fishing, to things like horsemanship, being able to pack, help out with the packing, and sometimes even helping out with cooking, camp jacking, cutting firewood, you name it. You're kind of a jack of all trades. So
yeah, that's
really important that you got to go into it with that mindset. The other thing where sometimes people can have a misunderstanding and is, you need to be a people person. This job is a service business. You are the face to the client for the outfit that you work for. And you need to view it that way. And you need to do the best of your ability to make sure that whoever your clients are, that they have the best experience possible. The people that you're working for are counting on that.
What happens? How do you handle it when you're on an elk hunt, say, and maybe the client doesn't tag out, maybe doesn't even have an opportunity on an elk? How do you handle that in terms of like the customer satisfaction side of it? Do you guys set them up first of all in the beginning, like, hey, here's the typical success rate with us, here's what we got to do to make this happen, and then say it doesn't? How do you handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and realistically, that starts with the outfitter, or it can start with the guide when they book a hunt. A lot of outfitters will have some of their key guides. I used to, for a couple of the outfitters I worked for, they would have me talk to clients, and I would kind of be the client interface, particularly with the first operation where I worked my way up. I was the head guide there, and even taught some of the outfitters guide school, taught the big game guiding segment. In fact, that's how I came in contact with Dirk years ago. But, the outfitter is really important that whoever books these hunts, that they have an open and candid conversation. Now, the outfitters that I work for in Colorado, and this is my third one, they all operate on public land. And you have some feel for what hunting on public land is in Colorado. There can be a lot of people certain times of the year.
Yeah.
And sometimes the hunting can be sometimes it can be really tough, and things like weather, running into other hunters where you do or don't, they can all affect the success rate. And so you got to have those kinds of conversations and set the client's expectations up front. Typically during the archery season, I'm going to say that it can be a little bit easier to get a shot opportunity, particularly for all the bulls start getting called to too much and they start getting call shy. But still, it can be tough. You get a lot of hot weather when the window of opportunity is more limited. So it's really about setting that expectation up front with the hunter and saying, look, what we can guarantee you is we're going to work our tails off and do everything in our power to get you a shot opportunity. And if things go right, typically, it's this percentage of hunters that during this season that we're able to do that for. But, it is what it is. And that's kind of where you have to be open and honest about it.
Have you ever had somebody like totally screw the pooch on a shot, or maybe had the animal bust them before, because of something they did, they sneezed or something? I don't know. And then they turn around and blame you guys.
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. That definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you a classic example. As you all know, one of the keys, of course, when, particularly with archery, when we get into a setup situation, we're getting, typically we got 2 hunters to one guide, and you got them out on what I would call the points and then the guide is back in the middle, and you're hoping to draw that bull one way or another past one of those hunters. Well, all it takes is one guy hearing the bull coming, and if he doesn't think the bull is coming his way, or he doesn't think he's coming fast enough, he tries to slip in, on his own to kill that animal. And, that's one of the key things that we preach, because there's obviously numerous things that can happen with that. I mean, probably the least worrisome is that he blows the shot opportunity. More severe is that he gets himself lost because he walks off and now he doesn't know where he is. Or worst case is when you set those hunters up and you go back as a guide and you start calling to this animal, you have a safe situation. When you get guys that try to sneak around when that bull's moving around, before you know it, God forbid, somebody can get shot too. So
yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm just throwing question after question here, but you have a lot of info, and I want to kind of pick your brain with something. You'd mentioned that it's a good opportunity prior to the bulls getting call shy in September. Do you have a bead on roughly when that transition happens? Because that I agree, that does happen. The bulls will start getting call shy in crowded units where it's like, I don't know what's going on. They won't talk back.
Or they talk back and then they keep going.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like you could talk to them, but they won't engage. That happened to me, I don't know, like week 2 last September, up in a more crowded unit. I ended up hunting that first part of September, where they were talking and then they just shut up. Do you have a bead on about roughly when that happens in the month of September?
I mean, in Colorado, I certainly do. When that happens there's no doubt that everybody has it stuck in their head that the middle of September is the peak of the rut. And the other thing that makes it worse here in Colorado, not that they give out that many tags, but it does mean more hunters in the woods, and any more hunters in the woods equals more hunters in the woods, is that generally coincides with our muzzleloading season.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, falls right in the middle of archery. Mm-hmm. So that middle of the month, now if you can get into an area where those bulls aren't being hassled, of course, that's a great time of the month of September to hunt. But I typically like to go right before that and hunt up to that period if I've got my choice, simply because I'll deal with the fact that they're not maybe quite as active, but they're also can be more responsive. And being responsive doesn't always have to mean that they're talking to me all the way in. I mean, I might get them to talk to me once or twice, and then they come in silent and check me out of curiosity, because those hormones are just starting to kick in and they're just starting to feel their oats and understand what time is nearing. So,
yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So prior to the 10th, I guess would be a rough guesstimate.
Yeah. Prior to the 15th.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I'd say approaching that middle of the month. That's when I typically like to hunt. The bulls are starting to get more active then. The other thing that I find generally early in the season is that, early in the season, those big bulls, they don't have those harems with them then. And as well as I do that the more eyes there are, the easier it is to get busted.
Oh, absolutely.
So, those bigger bulls, sometimes you can stand a better chance of getting a crack at one, before they get grouped up with 15, 20, even 30 cows,
Yeah, it's funny. One of my best days. When I say best days, I mean in terms of how many elk interactions me and my buddy Steve got. We were out hunting together, and I usually hunt alone, but every once in a while I'll go out with somebody, and him and I went out this one day, and it's like, I don't even know, I think it was September 2nd, something like that. It was one of the best days. We had probably 4 or 5 different actual encounters where when I say encounter, I don't mean the elk just kind of responded and then we never heard from them again. I mean, they came in, and circumstantially we couldn't get one, but it was a great day, and it was super early, and it was totally unexpected for me because I had the mindset, like you were saying, that, hey, wait till mid-September or whatever. And then the other funny part of that is, because we keep bringing up Dirk, is last year, him and we were texting back and forth because we're kind of hunting regionally. We were in the kind of the same neck of the woods, I don't know, 40, 50 miles apart. And he's like, I was telling him, man, it's just been quiet. I mean, just been quiet. And he's going, oh yeah, it has been quiet, but just wait until the 23rd. That they really tune up on the 23rd. And I go out the morning of the 23rd, and no kidding, right at sunrise, I call this bull in, and he's a little smaller than I wanted. And I'm normally not picky at all. He would have died on a normal day, but he had his big brother 100 yards away that was bugling his head off too. And so that smaller one kind of slipped away, and I snuck in on that bigger one and sent an arrow at him because he came right into a bugle. Sent an arrow at him, but I missed because the arrow deflected. And so anyway, I've told the story on the podcast probably a few too many times, but it was just funny how that worked out because it'd been quiet. I'd gotten no responses for like 10 days. And all of a sudden, Dirk says, yeah, wait till the 23rd. And I hit it on the 23rd, and it was one of the busier days I'd had all year. So there's something to it. I think we do this series called The School of September. And that's where, in fact, I have to get you on for that. But that's where we really try to dial in. Okay, what week should we focus on? What week is going to be like the key week during September? Depending on the unit. Do you hunt any more places than Colorado, or are you mainly in Colorado because of your guiding?
I've hunted, for the most part, I've only hunted in Colorado. Years ago, I went with some guys who I met here. Mm-hmm. They both have passed on. They were like my dad's age, who I met actually the first year I hunted here. And they took a real liking to me. I was in my early 30s then, and they liked the way I worked and could knock elk.
Yeah.
But we went to Montana one year in Beaverhead National Forest, which I got onto a big herd of elk. Unfortunately, didn't kill one because that the night before opening day we got like 3 foot of snow.
Oh no.
And, it was brutal. And I'm a young guy back then. I'm getting around in it, and they just couldn't get around in it. And opening day, I just kept going and trudging through all that snow, and I found where there was a big herd of elk there that day. I couldn't quite position. I heard bulls bugling, but I was headed back there the next morning, and they said, well, we're going to head on down because, we just can't get around the snow and go hunt some lower country, which we did, but
yeah,
it wasn't the same.
God, there's nothing worse than that kind of situation.
Yeah.
I love waking up in camp. That's what I don't miss about hunting Utah, man, is waking up and having, going to bed, there's no snow on the ground, and wake up and you look out the tent or the trailer, whatever you're staying in, and there's 2 feet. And it's like, okay, it's not just about whether or not I can get around on the mountain. Now it's, can I get my truck off this mountain? Because, it just comes out of nowhere. But What is it about elk hunting that you're so passionate about? What is it? The communicating with the animal? Is it the country they take you in? Like, tell me a little bit about why elk hunting is such a big deal to you.
For me, the real draw is, I'm just, they're so majestic. Number one, to watch them and see them in the wild is just super exciting. And of course the calling and getting them screaming at you, when you can get them close and see that scream coming out of their nose. It just doesn't get any more exciting than that. And then, of course, like you said, the country, and I don't care if you're getting up during the archery season and catching the sun when it's first coming up, or, during the later rifle seasons, even though it's cold, and you get fresh snow and how pretty the mountains are. For me, it's really all the above, but it's, as I stated in the beginning, hunting's been in my blood since I was a young kid. And I just enjoy being out there and enjoy being out there in the wilderness and getting after these things, and the physical challenge has always been an attraction for me too. It's no doubt about it. It's a physical test.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Man, I like mule deer hunting. It's almost time too. I look forward to mule deer hunting every single year. It's what I grew up on. That is not to say that I'm great at it, but now there's some really good resources available, and my favorite one is over at Eastman's Hunting Journals, where they have the mule deer course. This course has all sorts of digital information for you to go through as an e-course. It's got the basic safety, training and preparation, choosing a hunt, making a hunt plan, gear, scouting, glassing, field judging, rifle hunting, bow hunting, hunt strategy, harvest, the experience. All of it is right there in one spot for you to access and learn from some of the best like Dan Picard and Brian Barney. So up your mule deer hunting game by going to taghub.eastmans.com/courses/online mule deer course. You know what? Just look up Eastman's Hunting Journals and you'll find it. It's super easy. Let them know I sent you. You won't regret it. Can I break down a couple of questions that I would normally ask during School of September and get your take on how you would approach certain scenarios or whatever when elk hunting? When you are we were talking about kind of breaking down the season from early September, mid-September, late September kind of thing. Sticking to this archery September elk hunting thing or whatever with those muzzle loaders that go out in October in Colorado. How does your calling change from early, mid to late September? Does that make sense?
Mid to late September?
How does it change from early to mid to late September?
What I'll say is that in the beginning, I'm not going out there early in September. And in fact, I don't do it that often where I go through a full bugle. I tend to make, location bugles, high pitched whistles. And the other thing that I'll say that I do too, and I've kind of adjusted my calling over the last eight years or so as more and more pressure's picked up here in Colorado, is that I tend to call softly at first. Even when I'm cow calling, I'm not out there ripping, and typically, I won't crank up the intensity unless, I get an elk answering me and he starts cranking up the intensity, then I would do that, but, I tend to call soft. In the beginning, I'm just making light location bugles, see if I can get something to answer me. And then of course, if I get something to answer, I'm not going to keep calling to him. I'm going to try to figure out where is he? What's my best way to get to him without him seeing me or smelling me, and slip in there as close as I can before I try to set up and then try to get him to answer back to me, and early in the month, I'm not going to overdo it with the calling. I'm going to get in there and I might make some soft cow calls. I like to use different calls and try to sound like two different elk talking back and forth to one another, and I'm typically moving around, snapping limbs, that kind of stuff. Because a lot of times early in the season, these bulls will sneak in. And with guiding, I've had quite a few kills with bulls coming in silent the first half of September. Now, when you get into the latter part of September, then a lot of times you can get out there, and particularly on, like you said, on the right day, and the best situations, as we know, is when you have competition for cows. Say if you got cows that are in heat in the area, and you've got those satellite bulls firing off and the herd bulls are screaming back at them.
Mm-hmm.
Those are situations where I can get more aggressive, and I'll use a lot of the tactics that I've actually discussed with Dirk over the years, where, if I get a bull that's answering a cow call, maybe let's say that he's hanging up, I'll use my same tactics where I'm kind of moving around. So I'm, because obviously we know elk don't stay in one place. And if I'm calling for somebody, and one of the times I'm going to cow call, and when he goes to answer back at me, I'm going to scream over top of him. And a lot of times, once, twice, I've had him come with a full head of steam,
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I love the call right over the top of them when they start getting a little bit more agitated, if you will.
Yep.
And just cut them off. Yep. That seems to work every time, but okay. I know, again, Bob, I apologize. I'm going all over the place here. I'm bouncing all over the place. But,
no worries.
You say something and it like spikes a question here. As a service to some of the listeners that might be thinking about hiring a guide for next year or whatever, or planning on it down the road here, what are some things that clients do that frustrate you as a guide that could be detrimental to their own hunt?
One of the biggest things that I would say, where you start, number one, is that what I would tell clients is, and I tell my own clients this, is that nobody wants to see you get a bull more than your guide, even you. And so you got to start with that premise that says your guide, if he's worth a darn, if he or she is worth a darn, nobody wants you to get a bull more than they do. So the first thing what that means is that you got to trust them. You have to trust them. It's okay to make suggestions, but at times I've had people. I had a guy one time, and he was an avid whitetail hunter back in the middle part of the country, and he couldn't understand why we were on the move all the time. He wanted me to put him on a stand. He wanted to sit there from dusk till dawn.
Man,
a funny story here. He kept at me, and one day he says, Bob, he says, I just can't figure this out hunting out. He says, I never know when we're hunting and when we're not hunting. He said, and I looked at him. I said, let me make it real simple for you. When we step out of this tent in the morning, we're hunting, and we're hunting until the time we step back in this tent at dark.
Wow. Did you ever cave in and let him sit on a stand?
No, I did not. I worked my tail off to try to get him some. But the thing I'm going to say is trust your guide. Come in the best physical shape that you possibly can. And then the other thing is, particularly people that don't live at our altitude in Colorado is probably the worst, because, during the archery season, I'm up over 11,000 feet. In fact, even this year, first rifle, I was hunting over 11,000 feet. You really have to focus on staying hydrated. And that's a really hard thing for people to do, and consequently, that's one of the primary causes of altitude sickness is not drinking enough, and so those are a couple of the real key ones. And then
go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say on the guide side of things, this is important, but it relays into what you're saying is that one of the biggest challenges about being a guide, is to understand your client and their abilities, because your ability to hunt elk with a client is not going to be like what it is when you're hunting on your own. You're going to be limited to their physical abilities, their physical shooting ability, and it's going to be your responsibility to try to get them an opportunity that they can take advantage of. So that's, it kind of works both ways. But from a client standpoint, standpoint, once they make a decision to go with an outfitter, and outfitters are generally pretty good about matching clients up with the right guide, and also let's say that a client goes by themselves and they're going to be matched up with another client. Well, the outfitter isn't going to stick a guy that's maybe, 25 pounds overweight, comes from the middle of the country and, in the middle of his career with somebody that's younger and in top-notch physical fitness, because then you set the guy up for failure. You got neither one of those guys are going to be happy, depending on what you do or don't do, right? So.
Oh yeah. No, that makes sense. What do you think when you're talking about the out-of-staters that come in? Guys from the Midwest or the East Coast or whatever. Obviously, elevation is an obvious one. Being in shape for the mountains is an obvious one. But outside of those two things, what do you think clients that are coming from those areas is like the biggest surprise to them that they really just didn't expect when it comes to elk hunting in Colorado?
I'm going to say it's the biggest surprise to them is the physical challenge.
Is it?
As much as they think that, yeah, it really is. And every outfitter I've worked for has talked about the same thing, that guys just underestimate, how tough it is. And a good example is, guys think that I've had clients where they go out and run 2 to 5 miles every day, but they do steady state cardio. Well, steady state cardio, it might help you in building your endurance a little bit, but as far as simulating the kinds of things that you're going to encounter in an elk hunt, it really doesn't do much, because, with elk hunting, the key things you need is you need some leg strength, you need some power to power up those hills up and down. Mm-hmm. And then really you need the high intensity cardio where you get your heart rate way up and then, be able to recover so you can get steady enough for a shot. Say if you got to climb up to a bench or something like that, work a bowl, so it's that aspect. And then, the long days too. I mean, you're out there long days. I mean, sometimes, in the early going, one of the biggest challenges I find is you got to actually get guys to slow down a little bit. Say, look, we're not going to kill ourselves these first couple of days, because this is a 5 or a 6 day hunt is typically what most of them are. And you don't want to kill your guy in the first 2 days. And then they quit on you, which can happen very easily.
Yeah, I'll bet it can. I mean, it's such a big deal to think about somebody who lives, and I'm not throwing rocks at them with this. It's just a reality of it. You live somewhere that's flat, that your elevation is, not even 1,000 feet, and going from that extreme to the next, which is high country Colorado, aspen kind of forests in these areas that are just, it's not like what TV portrays it, I think. And so I've always been curious about that, and like what, as somebody who guides people in the high country of Colorado, like just the looks on their faces sometimes, I bet is A, makes it worth it, and B, makes you realize maybe what you're up against sometimes. I don't know.
Yep.
How does
And then probably enough.
What was that? Go ahead.
One last thing I was going to say, another area that comes to mind where guys can under-prepare, if you will, is is really in two key areas. The skills aspect of it with shooting. Mm-hmm. A lot of guys think about shooting, and I don't care if it's archery or rifle. They think about going out, shooting known distances. If they're shooting at the range with a rifle, they're shooting off a bench, some kind of bench rest, that kind of stuff. And one of the things that if I'm talking to clients before they come hunt with me, I'm saying, look, once you know that you have your weapon sighted in, now what I want you to do is I want you to go out and practice infield shooting positions. I want you to have all your gear on. I want you to have your backpack on. Your quiver should be on your bow. You should have your bino harness on the front. If you're shooting a bow, it's cool to use your rangefinder, but I want you to do some practicing where you walk off from the target, you turn around and shoot and guess the distance, because kinds of opportunities are going to come in the field. And the more you can do to prepare yourself for that, to simulate real hunting situations in the field, the better off you're going to be. Same thing about, I preach a a lot about a mental checklist. You know, with hunters, again, whether they're rifle or archery, that, you know, I talk about those kinds of things they should think about when they're home, about, you know, when you're going to go in, you're going to go set up on a bull. You know, the first thing you want to do is you want to assess your shooting lanes. Then you want to pick out some distances and range. And that stuff really needs to become muscle memory, because otherwise what happens is when the excitement of the moment comes in, you know, they're not going to be ready for it. You know, thinking about where are their draw points? You know, is that bull comes from this way or that way? Where are their opportunities to draw? Going through all that stuff in their mind. And then probably the last thing is that when that moment of opportunity does surface and they get that shot, it's really making sure that they focus on that shot and not focus on the size of the bull's antlers and how good he's going to look over their fireplace, because that's a recipe for a miss.
Yeah. Guilty.
Yeah,
I'll just leave it at that.
We've all done it.
What do you have? I'm always talking about September elk hunting, because that you know, obviously that's my favorite thing. But let's throw some love to the October or even late season November guys that are out there hunting elk. You know, I don't care what the method to take. I don't care if it's muzzle loader, rifle, archery, whatever. When you go out, whether you're with a client or you're just kind of hunting on a personal hunt, elk aren't talking, obviously, because it's later into the year. How do you locate elk? What are you looking for to find elk on the landscape?
Okay, in the later rifle seasons, of course, one of the things that really helps a lot is the weather. You know, typically, in fact, they've moved our season structure. Actually hoping they move it back to what it was, because it's fallen. Our fourth rifle season now doesn't fall till Thanksgiving week. And
really?
Yeah, and third rifle is like the week before that. And you know, that's just really late here. That you mentioned earlier about four-wheeling into somewhere and then wondering if you're going to be able to get out.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a right. But the one thing I will tell you, surprisingly enough, is that a lot of times third rifle season here, which used to be like the first week in November, now it's the second week in November, but I heard it again this year. There's something about third rifle season that you get those cows that haven't been bred, they come in the heat, and those elk will start bugling again.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it numerous times. So, you know, there's that. But one of my favorite ways to hunt once we get snow on the ground and stuff is that, you know, you let my binoculars do a lot of the work. I'm glassing, you know, because the elk stand out better. You don't even have to see animals. You can just see tracks, and you're looking for areas where, you know, typically where they're going to come out and feed. You know, they're still going to go a lot of times into dark timber and north facing stuff, and they don't care if the snow's deep. They're going to go in there and hang out during the day, but, you know, for a period of time. But, you know, those high mountain meadows that get wind blown where the snow blows off, the stuff that's south or southwest facing, that's where those animals are going to be, because the grass and stuff is going to get exposed there quicker with the sun. You know, I'm really watching those areas is the key way that I locate elk.
Have you ever
during the rifle seasons?
Have you ever gotten a bull fired up with a call in November after Halloween?
Yes.
Oh, you have?
Yes.
Tell me about that. That's super. I'm way curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, what I'll tell you, that time of year, it's not so much. It's a different kind of fired up. It's more from the cow call than it is from the bugle.
Okay.
I mean, they will answer the bugle, but the cow call, you know, is what can really get them fired up. Yeah, estrus call is the one that's going to get them fired up.
Did you say,
you know, that time of year?
Did you say estrus calls?
Yeah, the estrus call.
You'll start cranking out at like an estrus call in November, and
I might start with just some cow calls, and if he starts answering and he gets heated up, then I'll crank up the pace.
You don't have a call handy, do you?
No, I didn't.
Dang it. Okay.
No.
We'll do that. I'll get you back on for School of September. We'll talk about that. Maybe we'll do like a School of November or a School of Rifle
Sure.
Elk. Cause
All right.
yeah, I'm way curious about that. And everybody kind of has a slightly different way they do an estrus call. But I don't know if there's even a right way or a wrong way to do that. You just got to sound like a cow that is fairly excited, right. So I don't know. That's pretty fantastic. I've never heard of anybody calling in elk in November.
Yeah, no, and then the other thing that I will say is that about the later rifle seasons, and this is one that if I'm going to hunt rifle, I generally stay away from our second rifle here in Colorado because that can be the busiest hunting week of the year.
Is that the October one?
Yeah, that's the late October one.
Gotcha.
I either go first rifle where the elk are still high, typically as high as where we find them in the archery, and I got to pack in, or I go third rifle, where you get a week break and typically we get more snow. But as the weather starts, we start getting more snow and colder, and the rut starts winding down. Those bulls, of course, their fat supply is depleted. And so the one thing that you're going to find with those later rifle seasons is the window of opportunity throughout the hours of daylight grows significantly. In a case in point, this past year, third rifle season, I was hunting with my son, and it was a full moon, and the moon was ridiculous at night. So we were finding that at 9 o'clock in the morning, the elk were laying down, but 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they were up, and then they were up all afternoon feeding. So, with that cold and snow, and after the stress of the rut on their bodies, they've got to feed, and that cold and snow just triggers them where, a lot of times they're out feeding, most of the day, at different points in time. A lot of times they're not bedded far from where they're feeding either. So as long as they're not pressured, you find them and you bide your time and you're going to get a crack at one.
So if it's 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, you're out kind of trying to locate elk. You see a bunch of tracks that maybe cross this meadow area where they're feeding because there's snow on the ground, and they found some feed in that area. Is that something you would just kind of sit on?
Yeah, I would sit on that. Or if it was a ways away, I'd figure out how I was going to get there, and I'd get over there by mid-afternoon because good chance they're going to come out. So
again, I know I'm all over the place, Bob, but I'm curious about what the difference is because you guide fly fishing in the summer, right?
Yep.
And are you guys going after cutthroats? What are you guys going after?
Yeah, where I work at a place now called Budge's Wilderness Lodge, and we're about 35 miles, give or take 36, off the paved highway. It's quite a ride in there.
Yeah.
But and the primary fishing we have is what I'll call it small to medium river fishing. And when I say medium river, it tends to be on the smaller side. But we're fishing for cutthroats. We're fishing there's rainbows in there. And there's brookies, and I have heard some rumors about guys catching some browns in the lower river, but I have not caught any of those yet. Mostly it's, we go upriver from our lodge, we're catching brookies and cuts. We go downriver, we're catching all three.
Gotcha. Browns are a lot of fun, I think, but so are cutthroats.
Yeah, they are.
The reason I'm asking is what changes in terms of kind of to that same question I asked in terms of what or what fly fishing clients do that frustrate fly fishing guides?
Fly fishing clients, typically you can get some where you have to kind of feel the client out. Some people want help with their casting, and some people say they want help with their casting, but they really don't. So they don't take constructive criticism well, Do
you set them up on a metronome?
Yeah, it is what it is. And sometimes it can make your job more challenging because sometimes some of their habits can have a direct impact on them catching fish or not,
Yeah.
Just like with killing a bull. So
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I've always thought about doing various fly fishing episodes for this show. And I did one a while back, and it didn't get a ton of action. I feel like fly fishing is just a completely different. I think one of the things that happens, Bob, and I don't know if it's like this in Colorado, but like in Idaho, fly fishing gets kind of a bad rap because of the culture side of it. The people that are way into fly fishing sometimes don't align with the same people that are way into elk hunting, and I hate that because, I mean, you just people need to loosen up a little bit with that. It's a great time. In my opinion, fly fishing is the most efficient way to catch fish, and I don't care if you're talking on a river or on a lake or whatever. Fly fishing is the most efficient way to do it. And just because you don't like some of the people that do it, because let's face it, some fly fishermen they could be a little snobby, and I get it.
Right.
But I mean, it's the most efficient way to catch fish, and I don't know. I think it's a lot more fun anyway.
It is, and I'll tell you what's helped me, and it's also helped me help people that want to learn fly fishing or are interested in fly fishing is. I've been part of the Orvis Pro program for, I want to say, about 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the Orvis company changed its philosophy. And this is back when I first started, when I was a part of it, when I first started guiding fishing, that they went on a mission to say, we're going to simplify fly fishing. We're going to get away from this elitist fisherman stuff, and that it's technical, it's complex, and it takes all the skill. And they started simplifying it, and that's the way they taught it. They had these guide rendezvous every spring in Missoula, and I went to quite a few of these. And there was so much good information that was fed out of those seminars about how to teach people how to fish, how to simplify it. You don't need to be a bug biologist. All you need to know is, well, the bug is about that big, he's that color, and he's got that shape, and one in my fly box looks like that. And then teaching some people some basics about casting, and making it simple for them. And of course, the equipment nowadays helps a lot too. A lot of these new fly rods, you don't have to spend a lot of money to get something that casts decent.
Yeah.
What I tell people is, I take first time people out fly fishing that have never picked up a rod before. They might arrive at our base lodge, they get their stuff unpacked, they have lunch, I take them out on the lawn, and we talk about a few basic things, with casting, work with them a little bit, and take them down the river, and off we go, and I tell them, send it home. I said, look, if you take your rod out and you go out 2 or 3 times a week and cast for 10 or 15 minutes each time, that's all it takes. You'd be surprised how quick you'll get good,
Totally. I think you nailed it, because that's one of the things that's always driven me a little bit crazy when it comes to fly fishing is the way that it has been overcomplicated. And I don't know if that comes from marketing or this highly technical cultural side of it, where it's like, you have to be a bug biologist, like you'd mentioned, kind of thing. But I think that it's actually the easiest way to do it. I mean, it really is. You do have to learn to cast, and you have to have a basic understanding of what kind of bugs are floating what time of year. Other than that, all you got to do is present a reasonable representation of a food source to a part of the river where fish are at, and it's really not that hard. And I think that is that is the one of the reasons why fly fishing takes so much flack, is because I think that there are people that want other people that don't do it to think that it's this overly complicated, highly technical thing that only they're smart enough to do. I don't know. Maybe I'm going down a rabbit trail with that.
Yeah, you're 100% correct. You're 100% correct. It's so much fun. When I moved to Colorado 30 years ago, I owned one fly rod, and I had all this elaborate spinning equipment and phone riggers and all this, all this hoopla for fishing lakes back east and stuff. And you know what? I don't own any of that anymore. Now all I own is fly rods and reels. That's it.
Yeah,
I've become a fly fish because it's just so much fun. And you catch more fish.
Oh, for sure. Especially on a river. Like you said, I love the medium-sized river fishing. I still like to troll behind a boat and all that kind of stuff with regular traditional gear or whatever. But there's nothing like fly fishing. I mean, there's just nothing like it. It's like, I don't know how to compare it. a lot of I've done both rifle and bow hunting for elk, and it's not the same comparison. Like I heard somebody say, well, it's kind of like an elk hunter using a rifle versus an elk hunter using archery equipment. No, it's even more than that. It's different than that. And the what is the word I'm looking for? Like the satisfaction you get out of catching a fish on a fly rod is like way more than just if you throw a night crawler out or catch it on a spinner or a spoon or something, And so I don't know where I'm going with this, but go ahead.
It's interesting that you bring up the trolling aspect, because one of my favorite ways to fish in the spring is our lakes start to ice off here.
Mm-hmm.
I have these boats. You may have heard of them. They're made. There's a guy by the name of Rich Stuber, runs an outfit called Watermaster Boats out of Missoula.
Oh yeah,
and I met him, and I've got a couple of his boats, and I pack them everywhere. I put them on my mules, pack them into the high mountain lakes, whatever. Put them on my back.
Oh,
but
sweet.
In the springtime, I will use those boats, and depending on late spring, I might have to go to sinking line, but I'll use floating line, maybe just a split shot or so. But the way that I find fish is through trolling, and I'll put a streamer on, and then I might run some small beaded nymph or scud behind it. And, I go around these lakes and I troll until I start catching fish in front of a certain point or somewhere. And then I stand there and cast, and I'll stay there and I'll catch fish one after another until they stop, because these fish travel in schools and lakes. When the action slows down, then they pick up and they start trolling again. And I'm telling you, it works really, really well. It's a great way to find fish.
I'd love to do that.
It's a great.
I'd love to. If I was closer to you, I would invite myself on one of your fishing trips in the early spring or late spring. Yeah, that'd be a ball. I'd love to learn how to do that.
June is the month here. When
it's June. Because you're talking the high country.
June.
Yeah.
The lakeside fish they're anywhere from maybe the lowest elevation is 8,500. I've kind of got a progression where I keep migrating higher, but some of the good ones around 9,000 feet, give or take. So
okay, so let's kind of switch back to river fishing for a sec. With like these mid-sized small creek. What I guess the type of river that most fishermen would think of when they think of fly fishing in the Rocky Mountain region. And when I say Rocky Mountain, I mean all the way from Canada to wherever it tapers off down there in Arizona, New Mexico, kind of area. So the Rocky Mountain fly fishing. Do you have give us your top 3 most recommended flies?
I'm going to tell you that foam hopper imitations are really hard to beat.
Which one did you say?
Just a foam grasshopper imitation, and there's different colors. I mean, because one of my favorite ways to fish these small rivers in the summertime is I'll put a foam hopper on top, and it might be it could be even a size as big as a size 10, size 8 even. And then I'll run some type of small nymph, maybe size 16 underneath it. And it would be beaded or non-beaded depending on the water, how clear and slow the water is. With slower, clearer water, I tend to use non-beaded. If the water's moving a little bit better, if the water's a little off color, I'll go with a beaded nymph. But, certainly a hopper would be number one. I'm going to say, or it wouldn't, no priority to these. When you say my top 3, I mean, a hopper is up there. The other one that I would say, Parachute Adams, is a really big one here in Colorado with our rivers.
That's a big one up there too.
And then the other one, it's really hard to say, if I go to the nymph end of things, it probably varies between a pheasant tail and a prince nymph. They're both really good, depending on the type of water you're fishing. So,
God, that's fun. I love
there's
that.
a ton of streamers that are good too.
Oh man, I was going to ask you about streamer fishing because Bob, I'm addicted to streamer fishing on a fly rod. I love it. I love it. I can't get enough of that. And it's just a different kind of thrill. But I'd be remiss for those of you in North Idaho that might be listening, or like Eastern Montana, or I'm sorry, Western Montana, up here in the North Country. What I recommend doesn't differ much from Bob, other than I've never used that that hopper that you're talking about. So I'm going to try that, because I'm super curious how well that would. I'm sure there's guys listening to this they're like, yeah, no crap, works great. But I love the green drake. I love the elk hair caddis, and for nymphing subsurface, I love that stonefly for North Idaho. So for you guys listening, if you need a little lineup,
and I would definitely put the elk hair caddis up there with the parachute.
Yeah, for sure,
definitely. And probably the other thing I'll say is that I'm a big. Of course, sometimes you can get fishing where it's just so hot that you don't want a double rig, but my objective, whether I'm doing like what we were saying earlier, if I'm fishing lakes and I'm trolling and then stopping and casting, or if I'm fishing rivers, generally I've got two flies on, and my objective is that I want to be catching fish on both flies actively. And I keep switching until that happens. And, you'd be surprised when you start getting where it just makes the action work and be nonstop.
God, that's fantastic. You have an open invite in North Idaho, Bob, if you ever want to come up and teach me to fly fish, because I've never been able to answer or master the two fly setup. So that's pretty fantastic.
No, it's a lot of fun. No, that'd be fun to do. I'd love to. Idaho is the only state, Rocky Mountain state, I have not been to.
I have a pretty epic river not very far from my house. It's actually hard for me anymore to travel to go fly fishing. In fact, I really don't anymore, because the river that I fish here, and I'm not going to say it on the air because I don't want a bunch more yahoos coming up there and taking over my spot. But I used to think that Wyoming was impossible to beat with some of the fly fishing there. I fly fished Colorado once, and it was good. It was really good. But Wyoming was like kind of the mecca to me, in my opinion, until I hit this river up here close to where I live. The only hint I'll give is that it is in North Idaho. And nobody from Spokane, Washington is allowed to come over and fish it. That's the law. It's not me. I didn't make the law. That is the law. No, I'm kidding. That's not the law, but
that's awesome.
No, that's great, man. This has been a lot of fun. Honestly, it's been kind of a stress relief talking, just talking about outdoor stuff. Talking elk hunting, talking fly fishing. These are topics that I kind of go a little bit dark on in the winter, due to this is that time of year when we've got anti-hunters out there pushing legislative actions, and we try to deal with other things. Prior to spring, and so I need to do this more often. I'd love to get you back on the show in the future, man. I know I'm keeping you over an hour here.
Oh, no worries. Anytime. This is my passion. I'm not, like I said, I'm not guiding as much as I used to, although I do guide a lot of fishing. But during this time of year in particular, I do ski a lot too. But I've got plenty of time to do this kind of stuff, and I enjoy it a lot. And sharing the experiences that have been shared with me to pass it on, as well as just being more wired into what's going on in some of the other topics that I know you get involved with protecting our hunting and fishing rights, because, we've had it really good for a long time, but the time has come where we all got to be a lot more active in fighting for what we love, because we got people trying to take it away from us.
Absolutely. And one thing that, Before we end this, one thing that I actually wrote it down. I don't know if I put it in the notes that I sent to you, Bob, so this might be a little bit of a surprise question. Hope you're okay with that.
Sure.
Is when we're talking to hunters that want to continue hunting, how old did you say you were? 60-something?
I'm 66. I'll be 67 next July.
Okay. So for those of you listening, and one of the reasons why Dirk said that when he grows up he wants to be like Bob is because when you look at somebody who is 66, Bob is not what you envision. You are in incredible shape. The Instagram shows, this is, picture and video proof that you are way up in the backcountry and holding your own. In fact, I would argue, just by looking at you, that you could probably hit the backcountry more aggressively and go further and work harder than most people that are younger than me. And I'm just a spring chicken. Here, Bob. I'm only 42.
Yeah.
So the question I have is, what advice can you give somebody that is, I'm not talking about the youngsters out there. I'm talking about the guys that are just getting to be around that 40 to 50 year range, that maybe see their hunting years starting to sunset a little bit, and we want to extend that for as long as possible, because I want to hunt until I die. And I want to know what it is you do, what do you focus on, and what advice can you offer guys around that age to be doing what you're doing at 66 years old, because it's super impressive.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I definitely have some things. I mean, it really goes the full gamut as it relates to physical fitness, starting with nutrition. I try to eat right. That doesn't mean that I'm, I worry all the time about what I eat, but I try to eat quality meals and not eat a lot of junk. As I've gotten older, I still enjoy a drink. I enjoy some wine. I enjoy some whiskey if I'm in the backcountry, but I do it in moderation, And then the other thing I'll say is never giving up working out and doing some kind of training, whatever works for you. I definitely have some training that works for me. I tend to spend a lot of time in the gym lifting weights, but I've changed my routines as I've gotten older, that I don't do some of the same exercises that I used to do when I was younger, or for sure I do them with a lot less weight. So it's all about adapting and just continuing to stay active. You don't need to be a high performance sports athlete to do this stuff into a late age, but you do need to take care of yourself. Try to keep those extra pounds up, try to maintain muscle, get older, which can be hard to do. And probably the other thing that I wrestle with quite a bit, in fact, I'm just coming back from it now, Jim, is that I had, Dirk knows, I had my left shoulder touched up, and that was kind of a wear and tear thing where the joint was just starting to get compressed and I had impingement. And it's great. It's coming really quick. But what I'm going to say is that if you start to get aches and pains, and that typically doesn't happen too much in your 40s, maybe, for me, when I started having, where my body started failing me some is when I got into my late 50s. But what I did do with that was I didn't play around. I went and got help right away. Whether that help be physical therapy, whether it be acupuncture, in cases I've had to have surgery. I have 2 artificial hips, and that's, I used to be able to lift a lot of weight when I was a younger guy. That's why I could, throw a half elk on my back and go forever, but now I've got the hips to prove it. But what I'll say is not bragging. I'm just saying that this is about taking care of yourself, and also the type of doctors that we have out there now. If people were to see me ski, I still ski moguls. I still ski the backcountry. I'm still putting elk quarters on my back if I have to. I don't look to do it, and if I can, I bone them out because I don't want to carry all that bone weight anymore.
Yeah.
But the point is, I still can do it. And so there's a lot of good help out there that if you have things that are nagging you, go get help. Some people need help with training. Some need help with diet. Some need to be in part of a group to do it. I don't. I played sports my whole life, so training has become a habit for me. But certainly I would encourage guys, whatever that help is, go get it, because there's a lot of good people out there that will help you, whether it be with nutrition, training, or you have some physical challenges that you're dealing with, you need to overcome. Don't try to do it on your own. Get help.
I really like that advice. I think that there's a lot to be said for that point exactly, with from the standpoint of, like I told you, I'm 42, and I have severe, my left knee is severely arthritic, and it comes from some injuries that came out of when I was in the Marines. The Marines is pretty rough on your knees, and when you're, this is what I would say for dudes and for gals as well. I know our bodies age differently between guys and gals, but like when you're a young male in your 20s, you just think you're invincible, and your body is going to be invincible forever. And what you don't realize at that age is how quickly you go from early 20s to early 40s. It's like the blink of an eye. And I just wish I would have had somebody like you tell me that back then when my knee started bothering me around the time that my 13, almost 14-year-old daughter was born. So it was like 2008, 2009, and I'd been out of the Marines for, I don't know, 5 years or so, severely arthritic. And now there's not a heck of a lot we could do about it other than, when I notice that it really starts hurting, Bob, is when I get sedentary and I don't move. Like in the winter, when I kind of I get socked in with all the snow, and I don't do all, because what I do to work out mainly is hike with a pack on. That's the lion's share of what I do right now, because I live miles and miles from the closest gym, and I just am too cheap to buy the equipment. But hopefully that's going to change this spring. The point is when I stop doing that, that's when my knee starts hurting. If I'm on top of my game, like last September, I put on some serious miles this last year, and my knee didn't bother me at all. But it's bothering me today, sitting here in mid-January, because I've gotten lazy as all hell. And so, anyways, no, that's great, man. That is great advice. And I agree with Dirk, man. When I grow up, I want to be like you. I want to be doing what you're doing at your age. You've just got a good, solid handle on it, man. You're an inspiring guy. So, I appreciate.
No, thank you.
What was that? Go ahead.
I just said thank you. And I obviously I've had some good help along the way. I will say, like my son, his degree is in high performance sports training and kinesiology. He's helped me a lot. And what I would pass on to the younger guys, and you can understand this as well, Jim, is that when I was in my 20s and 30s. We all went through that Superman period. Oh, yeah. And, the part that I didn't realize, that I will say that there are some things that I would have done different. And because things that you get away with in your 20s and 30s that you think you're getting away with, they got a way of showing up later in life. So,
yes, they do.
In the gym, train smart. Don't, you want to do a high single now and then, see how much you can squat or deadlift, fine. But I would not make a steady habit of those kinds of things, because you're setting yourself up for back problems or knee problems, or whatever else down the road. And train smart. You don't have to be a professional bodybuilder to be an elk hunter. You want to train smart, or probably bodybuilder is the wrong example, a power lifter, because you're going to break your body down if you do that. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, Bob. Really good advice. Seriously, I hope you guys listening, you younger guys out there in your 20s, Bob is not kidding when he says that stuff just doesn't go away. All it's doing is hiding and giving you an ego. And it does come back with a vengeance. And so, and we've all been there, so don't get hard on yourself. But think about that as you're going forward and training, and where we've got years ahead of us. And I want to be like Bob. I want to be hunting when I'm in my mid-60s and still out there enjoying this thing that we do. Because, this is fantastic information. So, Bob, you up to come back on for like a School of September or something later in the year?
Absolutely, yeah. Let me know, Jim. Anytime you want to talk fishing, or we can talk about getting together and doing some fishing too. So
yeah, absolutely. Don't threaten me with a good time, Bob. I'll be there. Anytime we're talking fly fishing, I'll be all over that like a fat kid on a Twinkie. I love fly fishing. So, and it's not something we talk about much on the show, but I'd love to do it with you if there was ever an opportunity we can get. Heck, we could meet in Wyoming or Montana, and even fly fish a new river neither one of us has ever hit before. So
that'd be fun too.
Well, tell everybody how they could find you, Bob. I think I gave your Instagram.
I'm on Instagram, BobT756. I'm also on Facebook, Bob Terwilliger. Feel free to send me a friend request on Instagram. You can just follow me. My account is public, so not a problem there. And I try to post stuff throughout the year, what I'm doing, particularly I think where it's really interesting is those that don't live in elk country or some of the Rocky Mountain fishing country that we do here. I try to share a lot of that stuff just so people can see what it's like and understand the experience, and hopefully someday they get to do it. So,
well, what I'm looking at, guys, I'm on Bob's Instagram right now. He's got everything from riding mules into the backcountry with wall tents, setting up wall tents in the snow, cooking elk meat, working out in the gym, drinking whiskey, catching fish on the river, skiing in the backcountry. And I love this picture you posted, this whatever you want to call it, a throwback or something. But you posted that picture from years ago, and you were a stud then too, man.
Yeah.
Holy cow!
That was in my early 30s then.
Yeah,
that was something that I was a force to be reckoned with back then. But
well, you still are.
Survival mode.
You still are. So, Bob, I appreciate you joining me, man. This was a lot of fun. Glad I got a new friend out of this whole thing. So I better send Dirk a thank you text or something. Let him know for letting me know who you were and why you should come on the show, because it was worth it. So thanks again, and let's keep in touch and talk soon, man.
All right, sounds good, Jim. Thanks for the opportunity.
You made it. That's the end of the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you're following us on Instagram at The Western Huntsman, and write us a good review at Apple Podcasts. Thanks, guys. See you next time. Stay Western, and I'll see you on